Hello, and welcome to the Manifestor Only podcast. Today, I have the 6'2 Splenic Manifestor, Isa. So excited to have you here today.
Hello.
And
Saludos de Costa Rica.
yes, I'm watching this beautiful jungle background, which you guys can't see if you're listening to this. And I don't know if I'm going to use the video yet, so we'll see. But it is absolutely super peaceful just to see where you're at. I would love for you to start us off by introducing yourself in the way that feels the most natural.
Laughing at myself. Introduce myself. I have a name. It's changed over the years, but Isa's been the same. I'm right here, right now. What else can I say? I'm here because human design. Um, we're both manifestors. We happen to have the same profile, and we were born in the same country, and we don't live in our birth country. And I did not expect to end up here, and I don't know where I'm going.
It's always interesting to see what comes out of the undefined G when I ask them to introduce themselves. They're like, well, who am I today?
Trick question.
A little bit. I would like for us to just start on a really simple topic because we have a lot of cool things that I want to go into. But I'm always, of course, as we are, attracted to what we're not. And I am so intrigued by the splenic authority. And I think a lot of people are like me, because that's what I think, where it's just like this splenic authority. How do you even start to explain that? It's like, yeah, I can talk about the mechanics and all that, but I would love to hear your experience of what it's like to be a splenic manifestor.
Well, in the years before that label was ever given, I lived very much like what they say a splenic manifestor is. And I was fortunate in that way. Even unfortunate circumstances were fortunate for me in the ability to have freedom to move around. And um, yet, what I don't know right now is how much of my moving around then, and as in like I would just go out into the woods. I would just go get the horse and go, and or I would, as soon as I had a vehicle, I would just drive away, and I just moved any way I wanted to move. Um, when it was introduced to me, like I didn't even pay attention to what splenic authority meant for several years. The first person who introduced it to me, I was like, oh yeah, I just do what I want when I want to do it. And it really wasn't until some years into human design that I started going, well, what is it really? And then I got to understanding about thinking, about my thinking part that's separate from my splenic part. And then I just thought about it for some years. And I was pretty pissed at Raw because he didn't seem to explain it very clearly. And even like the admin of the Manifestor group who's splenic, she couldn't say anything. It's just your intuition. I'm like, well, what is that? Um, and now I question the whole label of it because um, mm, it's a strategy to slow down the mind from deciding. And I don't know how much of what I did before human design was my mind deciding, but I know I did a lot of mind time in years of human design going, what is my mind? What is this inner authority? And I've come to this conclusion or developed whatever, some temporary conclusion that um, inner authority makes a lot of sense for a big percentage of people. But then there's kind of some breakdowns. Inner authority is not as mechanical as the rest of the human design system, but it's as good as it gets. Okay, so now I'm in a position like, okay, I understand the thinking part of it. And then I stop and think if I'm using my authority or not. And that's and so there's a little bit of a battle because on the one hand, I've been advised by a 6'2" projector that if you stop to think what you're doing, then you've lost your authority. You're not a splenic manifestor. On the other hand, um, to to be 100% theoretically accurate, to be a splenic manifestor, never think about what I'm going to say, never think about the consequences of what I'm going to do, results in really stupid, bad decisions that offend people and hurt me physically, financially, and on all kinds of levels. So, so from my perspective, splenic authority is stupid. It's the stupidest authority you could have. It doesn't involve any awareness, although they say it's awareness, but it actually doesn't involve any awareness. And in fact, it can be, well, in fact, my understanding from Dream Ray, for example, is that a bunch of my splenic authority personality gets reaffirmed in a five-centered mammalian way while I'm sleeping. So that's conditioning me to make five-centered mammalian decisions.
Interesting.
And they're not good. I mean, when I look back, I'm like, whoa, look. So, Ra wasn't forced to work this one out during his time, and that's fine. But the best that he could eventually say was it's just not making a decision.
Yeah.
And I can see how in some ways that does work out for me. Like being here now, I didn't plan to come back to Costa Rica. My mind had all these reasons why I would never live in Costa Rica again. But there I was buying a plane ticket, and then there I was with that person, and I feel quite supported and very peaceful where I'm at. So I guess that's an example, but it's actually even hard, like, to talk to other splenic manifestors about it now, because I've gotten to a point where I'm like, yeah, it's kind of just an in-between until you realize that you actually have no control over anything at all anyway. And it's just a thing to like grab onto and call a label or whatever while you get beyond that. But I would be happy to try to answer a more detailed or specific anything follow-up on that.
That is such a cool and new perspective. Earlier today I was talking to someone about the emotional authority, which I have, of course. And of course, we can look at it and like you said, that there is a process of finding human design and then getting really mindy around this whole thing called authority and being like thinking about, am I using my authority, and getting into that mind fuck place of, I guess, training our minds, our brains to take in this human design system, and then it tries to use it against us, which at least is my experience. But
mine also.
Right. And even though I'm emotional and I'm supposed to go through this wave, again, I think there's, of course, nuances here. My emotional authority is unconsciously defined. It's red, right? The only part of my solar plexus system is, or that channel, the 1222. I mean, the 12 is red and the 22 is black, leaving it unconscious. And then, of course, my full 4919 is completely unconscious. And so there is this sense of, okay, well, both of these parts are awareness systems, right? The splenic awareness system, which is aware in the moment, in the now, there is no future, there is no past, where the emotional system is all time encapsulated together. But there's still this sense of it's in the moment that the decision is being made. And when right? So everything is always happening in this, mind fuck of linear time, which we've created because that's the easiest way for us to be humans in this beautiful Maya. But it's not like I know until I know. And the same goes for any authority, really, So I find that really fascinating. And when we look at the mechanics of the spleen and a lot of teachers that I've had, they try to explain this, that's why I'm always so fascinated to talk to people who have that, what we call splenic authority. But they talk about it as if like there's first of all, it's okay. The spleen only says no. It sometimes says yes. And I would love your input on what your experience with that is. And then on the other side, they also talk about like a bodily sensation of, for example, hair rising on your arms or in your neck, or like a tiny voice, some people kind of sometimes explain it as. So what are your experiences with these descriptions of the splenic authority?
Yeah, so I heard from somebody on Facebook that there was, and actually somebody else, that the spleen only has a red light. And then somebody else said, no, that's not true. And eventually I found Raw saying there's a green light and there's a red light. But effectively, the green light is like nothing. It's just flowing. It's just happening. It's just happening. You pick up something at the store, and then when you get home, you understand why you bought it. Maybe something like that. So it's an absence of resistance, I guess. I don't think that there is a splenic hit, like in the sense of like a sharp feeling. I do think that in my remembering back to times when there were little voices before like a catastrophe, it was a very little voice. It was little. It was little. And so when people say like I got a splenic, hell yes, I'm like, nope, that wasn't splenic. It wasn't. It was emotional, or it was ego, or something else, and you weren't in your own aura. You were magnifying something else, and you're calling it a splenic hit. That's my take on it. It's so much more subtle, I think, than that. And I don't think I would be able to say that if I hadn't had so many years alone and sleeping alone and living alone in recent years. Because if I'm with somebody, I'm probably emotionally amplifying or ego amplifying or even making, one of those channels, in which case that's way louder than anything splenic. The little splenic things, as I'm understanding it, and other splenic people, especially projectors, have been good at helping me see this. Just these small little things like, do you pack your cell phone charger or something, or that little sense of, I should pack the cell phone charger. You see it when it's sitting there, but then you walk out of the house without it, and then you need it later, and you've got that little, oh, there was a little voice. But it wasn't loud, never loud. Um, as far as the like hair standing up on the arms, I mean, I do get that. I love that. I don't know. Maybe that is splenic in the sense of the lymphatic system and like the water in your body knowing that something, yeah. Um, I do love it when that happens. I do love it when I'm talking and then or I'm hearing somebody and I'm like, and the art, like when it happens, it's like it's really fun to watch and to feel. And it is very much a skin sensation, but maybe that's touch cognition. I think I might be getting in. I might have confused those, and I'm understanding touch cognition, I think, more and more as I'm understanding tones and studying that more. So there's a little uncertainty there, but also there's the fact that my touch cognition is maybe more in my body, and my splenic authority is all personality, lit up by an ambitious personality moon. Like when I look at my inner, like my supposed inner authority, this black thing, I'm like, who would trust that? Like that's so dumb in comparison to like waiting for life to unfold as emotional authority practice lets you do. And so I've pushed a lot of things that didn't need to be pushed.
Hmm.
Does that fill in any of your understanding there?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. And this is what I love about having conversations with people who, at least the way I see through my lens, are deeply in their experiment and deeply in this whole proving or disproving what human design is, and finding their own words and their own experiences for what these different mechanical, it's super easy to read it. It's super easy to try to understand. Well, it's the spleen and it says mostly no, but sometimes it says yes, sometimes it's like this, but then it's like, okay, but what is the experience of having that? And then, like you said, you get into these nuances of, but oh, that might be my touch cognition, or this might be, it's fascinating. So I would love to go a little bit back, because you said something
Mhm.
about how you lived your life very much the same as you do having that splenic authority, as in you would do what you felt like and do what you wanted, and being that manifester who just initiates and does what they want and comes sometimes forgets to tell people that I took the car and left. But would you feel like, has there been a difference though of this life before and life after finding human design?
Well, yes, except I can't say that it's because of finding human design, because I left all of it. I had left all of it before, in like 6 months before I left design, with like, which was very, very much my design to just say, yeah, I'm just gonna, go somewhere else. I don't know what's gonna happen, and I'm not really gonna leave myself any fallback plans. I mean, I did have, enough money for a while. So I can't say that it was finding design that did that, but it was kind of like I was on my way to encountering that knowledge. So it was almost like a dessert to find out that there's a way to explain why it all went down the way that it did, and why that wasn't going to last, and why I would just light the match on the bridge on my way out to make sure I never crossed it again, without even thinking like maybe I'll need to go back across that bridge someday. And now I'm actually more careful now about making decisions than I've ever been in my life. And uh, that might also be quite natural, in the sense of like my design moon is super conservative, and yet it's a first line, so it has, that first line detriment's always just like fucking blow through it. It's like that first line detriment. But my first line exaltation is perhaps more guiding me than ever before. I really am literally more cautious of what to be afraid of, and more careful in making decision, and more likely to just sit and do absolutely nothing, uh, until, okay, well, what is going to happen? Like, I used to think I had to make my life move, and I don't have that illusion anymore.
Mm. Yeah. For anybody listening, your design moon is 32.1. Um,
Hmm.
yes.
Conservation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me laugh because I'm like, really, me? But now I'm like, okay, maybe I am. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
staying alive hasn't been something I've tried very hard to do. And in fact, I should be dead several times, but the collective keeps putting me back together. So what to do?
Now that's interesting. How so? How is the collective keep putting you back together? Tell me a story there.
Well, like the ER visits, I've had 3 ER visits since Saturn return, I guess. And oh, do you carry a gate 28, don't you? A
I
gate 28,
do.
line 6
I
and line
believe
3,
it's line 6 and 3.
around
Yes.
there. Okay, so I've got that line 6 in my Saturn. Anyway, so I've had 3 ER visits, 2 broken legs and a broken neck, all spread out over the last whatever 15 years. And so to me, an ER is totally a collective thing. You don't even have a choice. Like, your body gets surrendered to the collective, and they do all these things, and then they put you, you're alive enough to leave the hospital. They don't support you. The ER didn't evaluate and say she's worth keeping in the tribe. We're going to repair her. Or a logical decision might have been she is not worth keeping in the tribe. Let her go. But each time I get into the ER and then I come out of it, which by the way might be a wet kitchen, I think it probably is. And I come out of it, and then I have to figure out how I'm going to do the next step. The first time I was married, so I already had that structure. The other 2 times I wasn't. Um, so yeah, no collective channels for me, but the collective will put me back together. And maybe 15 years from now, that hospital kind of system won't work. Maybe they won't let me in because or whatever. But I do recognize that I would be dead but for the collective. I wouldn't have made it out of my mother's birth canal if I hadn't been pulled out. There's another ER basically example, right? I was a forceps birth, and so I am humbled by all of that, and the best I think I can do is entertain the collective these days.
Well, neither of us have collective channels, right? So what
Okay.
I think is so fascinating about our designs, which we've spoken about before, is the mirroring of our designs, right?
Hmm.
Where I have the 1949, you have the 5432, where I have the 1222, you have the 5720, and then I have the full genius to freak, and then you have the 2461. And so there's just this mirroring of individuality and tribalness that's going on within us. And I just, and then we're both 6'2s, and I'm just like, oh, I
Yeah.
love this. And I don't know why, but I just do.
There is an ease. There is an ease. Hmm.
Right. Yeah. And ease. I think that's a beautiful way of saying it. And, you know, the way I came to find you, Isa, was of course Facebook, and the way you would answer different people on these Facebook groups and in these Facebook, well, not chats, but just like questions that people have asked in these different groups. And I just saw your answers and I was just like, that, yes, that right there, right? It's like my 1222 was like, this is what I'm feeling, but I don't know how to express it. And then you would come along and you would express it. And it felt so real and so honest for me. And this kind of brings me to another part of what I would like to talk to you about, because I feel like one of the things that, if it's been a mindful decision or not, but one of the things I see in you is this radically living your design. You mentioned earlier where, you've been living alone for quite a long time and you moved to Costa Rica, and sometimes you have dogs, sometimes you don't have dogs. But would you say that is true? And if so, I mean, how has that felt for you to just jump in like this?
I don't know that I had a choice about it. When I left the States and then what happened, I met design, a few other decisions, like kind of well, quite quick decisions happened. And then was just no going back to anything before. And, there were different relationships with men. Those were the big distractions. Like, I'm going to do it with that man on that sailboat. I'm going to do it with that man on that sailboat. And I guess I could mention that just that when I left the States, it was with the understanding I was going to be sailing around. So I thought I was going on a sailing adventure. I thought I was on the next level of becoming an international water sailor. I didn't think I was going out to like look for myself, and I still don't think that way. But I can't, there was no mind decision that said I'm going to be radical about human design. When I met it, like a few miles away, literally like over there, like over
Wow.
there is where, at a workshop. And it wasn't like I said, oh, there's my way. I'm going to do human design. I was like, oh, yep, you're a 6'2" manifestor. I'm a 6'2" manifestor. We do what the fuck we want. And, we escaped the United States. And of course, okay. So I really didn't, I just understood, do what you want to do from that introduction, from that freak genius 6'2" manifestor, right? So I didn't understand that I was doing anything so much lined up with my design in the way that some people see now, until I started talking to other people on Facebook. Like, and then by 2020, I was whatever, talking way too much. Like, I knew what was going on in those situations. So I just can't say it was the choice that I made with my mind. And there was also nothing to go back. There was no thing to go back into. There was
Mhm.
no conditioned situation to go back into. Even though I visited the States a few times in the years after I left, like one summer, I went back to just see what happened, and I basically ended up with a car on a road trip around my home state for the summer, which was quite fun, being like, but I also could feel like, nope, there's nothing for me. I'm not going back into law. I let my law license go in maybe a dramatic splenic / emotional decision at the end of 2016. So there was just nowhere to go back to. It's not like I could just get back into bed with whoever or whatever, or go back. I couldn't go back to anything that was from the first year. So does that answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this is where we get into the whole no choice and how human design perhaps is not for everyone.
Oh
And
yeah, no, it's not.
right. And that not everybody is going to actually what should I say, have a life that's lined up for them to actually end up where you've come to, right? Where it's been like, okay, now I'm just living my life. I'm just doing this thing and I'm just surviving whatever day
Yeah,
to
I don't recommend my route to anybody. But uh but there's still a lot of help for people that like, and I see the practicalness. More and more I'm starting to see like that Ra had his own radical way, which is, one line off of me. We're both Clarions, we're one line apart, and so I get that, but I also I'm understanding more and more as I become whatever, more mature, more whatever, that this this isn't going to liberate everyone. Very, very few people actually, and but there are still practical applications of it. And so for a long time, it seemed like I was in that we got to defend the purity of human design team, which is led by some very questionable people, you know, and and now it's just like, well, shoot, I was kind of even forced to try to make money with it. I never thought I want to make money with human design ever, ever, ever. Like just shit happened. And then there was an opportunity. I'm like, oh, that's the best one I can get right now. I'm going to take that opportunity. Okay, here we go. I've got an LYD certification now, blah, blah. And so I don't know. I wouldn't suggest, I don't know. It's one-on-one how radical somebody can get. And if you're going to go radical, you're going to meet other radical people. That's just it. And they're not all great. And there is no like, there's no report card for like the radical human design people. It's a frequency. If you like hearing them, then listen to them. And they might fuck you over along the way. And that might be part of what you needed to learn, was that you can be fucked over. So I would like, rather than telling people that they should like as a concept be radical about design, well, I guess I could say there isn't anything to be afraid of because you don't choose when you die. There's nothing to be afraid of. The worst case scenario is you're gonna die and you don't even get to choose that. And nothing you decide between now and then is gonna change that date. That's what I could say. So if you look at it that way, like I could die tomorrow. Should I hold on to this deal I made with this person, us two open ego people? Like, does that deal matter? Like maybe. And I like to do that with people, but I don't do that with everyone. I've got clients that I'm like, I mean, somebody's who's paying me regularly a decent amount of money, and I can just tell, like, I don't know if she's ever going to slow down to feel that, but she feels empowered by talking to me. I feel empowered and supported talking to her. We're sharing frequencies. Human design happened to be the language, the system that caused our minds to meet, and we have both found more peace, and for her, more peace and satisfaction in simply understanding that there's a system to it. And then there's a description for why her daughter is so different than her, and so in that sense, my peace can support other people's peace, even if they're not on a radical path. But it's also that I needed some radical people early in my experiment because the mainline people were just so boring. Just, right, yeah. And I'm not saying they aren't contributing well to humanity with design, but they didn't inspire me. They didn't empower me. And as you know, us emotional or tribal and individuals, we need support and empowerment from other people, even though we are often looked at as the one to provide the support and empowerment to whoever. But it's not really the case. We actually have to bring that back to us. And that's something awesome for me to have figured out, is I need to initiate the people that I want to empower me.
That's a beautiful way of saying it.
That can be it can be any type, but I mean, like channel for channel, like I need some support now. I'm going to call up my transmitter friend right now and just listen to him talk about his dog, and that feels supportive. So yeah.
And I think that kind of sometimes gets lost in translation, where it's like, oh, I'm here to support and I'm here to empower, and it's like, yes, and I need that. especially as manifestors, where it's like, oh, well, you are so independent and you're so able to initiate and do things and what's it called? Trailblaze and all these things that people like to hook manifestors onto. And it's like, well, I also need support. I need my needs supported. Thank you very much. And yeah, it's a very honest and true thing that I think a lot of manifestors needs to hear, is that yes, you can be the lone wolf. Yes, you live in your closed repelling aura, and you're going to need people around you, most likely, no matter what your design is, no matter what channels you are, individual, collective, or tribal. It's like, we need to have that help. We are non-sacrals. End of discussion.
Yeah, there is. Yes, there is that. And to have correct sacral beings in a manifestor's life is really, I'm understanding now, the biggest. And this community where I'm at now, this is the first time where everyone that I interact with that's a generator, there are no generators initiating me here. It's real. And the ones that are in my network / in my tribe, they don't initiate me, and it's perfect. They really, and they don't have expectations of me, and I can just call them up and ask them, and it's great. So that's probably been one of the most top 5 most practical things I've learned from human design, is how to respect a generator and ask them and see what happens. Because everything, I understand that what I did when I lived in my parents' household, what I did when I was married, there was always a generator there. And I was initiating the generators. I didn't understand that. I didn't think that that was me. I thought that that was them. I thought they were the winners. I thought I was the weird one who was lucky to get to have them around. But I now also understand why I didn't understand how to rest or anything like that. But correct interaction with generators through questions is so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. And that might be something I get more loud about. I know you've got relationships with generators, and you talk about this too. So I would love to hear more. I would like to see, I hadn't thought about this before. I would like to see more manifestors understand that.
Mm.
Mhm. It requires admitting your own like vulnerability / weakness, blah blah. But also your potential for your power is really there. They want to be initiated when they want, and if they feel free to say their truth, their no, or their then everybody wins. So that's super practical.
Yeah, I mean, I'm married to an MG. We've had a
Mhm.
relationship that has lasted decades, and we've always had a relationship that evolves. And of course, with human design coming into our world, it's evolved into something we never ever imagined. And I think it's so interesting how there's been such a lack of respect for his response from me earlier, before I understood the mechanics, before I understood that I
Mhm.
was playing the super manifesting generator, Um, and
Mhm.
now it's like being able, like you said, to have those questions and to be like, okay, do you want to go out with the garbage? And his response is, okay, I can do that. No, no. The was the first thing we needed to hear. I want you to get in contact with your body. I want you to honor your body. I want you, because if he's happy, when I have a satisfied, and I'm pointing towards the door because that's where he is. If when he's satisfied, I'm much more at peace. And there is a dynamic there where we have chosen to be in this relationship. We've chosen to have this, co-living situation of being married and living life together, and having that ability to respect each other at that level, and not just as, this entitled manifestor energy of being like, oh, well, I'm the queen, you better just listen to me. But me being able to be humble enough to say, oh, well, you know what? When your sacral is satisfied, I can feel that. There's harmony.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Coming off my pedestal now. Went on my high horse there for a moment, but seriously, I think.
No, no, no. It's a true story. It's a true story. It's really cool to be aware of the amplification of a sacral center and what a good one feels like and what a not good one feels like. And it's really quite amazing. I'm grateful for that experience. And now looking back, like about how I used to get off on that, like how I could like walk into in fact, I was just talking to another splenic manifestor this morning. We have this combination of we're both splenic with the thinking channel separated from our splenic lower. And so we were talking about music, or it came up about music, and our relationship with music has really changed a lot. But we both identified with back when we would be the woman to start the dance floor. Like we could get out there first and pull people out and get things moving, and the crowd would always part. Like you could do anything you wanted to on the dance floor. But then probably like one of the first people to leave the dance floor and look back and like, okay, the party's rolling and I'm gonna go drink some tea now. Yeah. And I don't know how I got onto talking about that just now. What was that about? Oh, it was about how when you're in that dance floor queen situation, it's like you really get to pick on different people, but actually the whole thing is carrying you. There's no separation about it. But the ability to just kind of splenically, just in the moment, pick somebody's body to interact with, and now to know the mechanism of that energy. I'm really pretty fascinated about the intertype dancing dynamics now. We were talking about that. Yeah. Is this something that's come up for you? Do you recognize this about dancing and like partner dancing or solo dancing? Maybe not a thing for you. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I was into dance most of my teenage years, and now I'm married to a non-emotional person who doesn't know how to dance.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the lead follow that we were talking about the manifestor part of this, right? So she remembered seeing this video of me from a couple years ago. I'm in Mexico, and I meet another 6'2", and we have a great lineup on the charts. And he does dance something or other. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm ready to dance now. I can walk again. My leg had been recovered just enough to walk, and I wasn't. So anyway, so she saw this video of us, and she saw there was kind of an awkwardness to it. And she said, I could see your manifestor part kind of coming out to lead, but then he kind of tried to lead, and it was kind of a mess. And I recognized that. And what I come to understand now is that, well, and he's also quad right, and I'm 3 parts left. So I think that's part of it too. And he had this thing where he wanted dance to be completely non-structured, flow, and that was his word, flow. So we're just gonna flow. Now I can just flow, hippie dance all limbs, of course I can do that. But what I recognized in trying to dance with him was if I'm going to dance with a man, we're going to like touch, we're going to have a shape. You're going to be firm. You're going to hold the frame. You're going to follow the beat. You're in charge of all of that. My body's going to do, I don't know what the heck. But if your frame is there, I always end up right back in the frame. I know how to like twirl and end up right back in spot, but then I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about it because he's with the music. I know where his feet are going to land, and my body can do these improvisations and still be within the frame of the space that the lead is creating. But with somebody who's quad right and doesn't want to lead, then I start kind of taking over, but then I don't really want to be in charge of making you dance. So why are we even touching? Like, why not just, open hippie dance floor style? So there's a little funny thing about the manifestor realizing, and I know that plays out on all kinds of levels. Like on the one hand, some kind of strength that allows me to not be in charge. On the other hand, if that's not there, I'm probably just going to take charge. And that's not because I just wanted to, it's just because in the moment, my body followed the beat and you weren't leading me anywhere. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I'm looking forward. I might have him identified. I'm looking forward to finding a man who wants to be that lead dancer, and I want to see what my body does. Oh,
That is so
okay.
interesting, because I was talking to someone earlier about this as well, who on the podcast, where like those moments where you're like, I don't have to take the lead here. Right. These moments of being able to surrender that someone else is not initiating per se, but taking the lead, taking the role of that masculine kind of rah, we're going to get something done and I'm going to dance with you over the floor, whatever, just being that person that can take that burden from our shoulders. But like you said, an example I have in my life has nothing to do with dance, but it's more like, for example, my husband and I have been buying a lot of things secondhand, right? And so if we're going to drive to go pick that thing up, I might be like, I want you to just take the charge. I want you to talk to the person. I want you to just, you be front and forward because I'm just not in the mood to do that today. And then we'll get there. And if his energy isn't quick enough to be in that leading position, I will be straight in there and I'll be like, okay, so this is and then my husband will be on the way home. He'll be like, well, you asked me to take charge, but then you took charge. And I'm like, it didn't happen the way I felt like it was supposed to happen, or it didn't happen fast enough, or it didn't happen with the raw that I needed, or it's just so interesting to notice that in myself as well, where it's like there is such a big part of me that's like, I really just want to rest. I really just want to get off of this raw, let's go do it kind of energy. But then it gets turned on. It's just there. I can't not.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear you. I hear you. In your two parts, right? If I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm starting to. Um, do you hang out with quad right people? Do you have any quad right buddies?
I have a best friend who's a quad right too for purely individual MG.
Okay. So the generator I spend most time with here is quad right, also 2-4, and in his space, in his house, and like when his motorcycle is our transportation system, I do notice that I am much more likely to just flow with things. Like between him and nothing has ever gone wrong in a way that I ever try to control it very much. I get annoyed by things that aren't in control sometimes, but I never. So like I kind of like that, like really in the flow, really in that quad right flow. Um, But another thing is that I've been living in foreign countries for so long now where I've never really been able to be in charge of anything. Nothing in me assumes that I can be. I mean, in Oregon, I was a very adult by age 25 because I had just done that. But I'm learning a different way of that now. Because okay, nothing else for me to say on that one right now.
No, but I would love to hear a little bit more about that. How are you learning that in a different way? Like, do you feel like that might be a little bit of the softening of the roof process, or is there something else going on of being just, yeah? Because what I'm hearing you say might be wrong, but it's like letting go of that need to
yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't need to initiate anything. There's nothing that I need to initiate. And when it's time for me to do it, I'll do it. Like my mind thinks that I need to do some things to make my house different or that I need to get a different house situation. But then actually I'm not actually doing it. And the way that housing has worked out for me before is like it changed when it changed. There wasn't actually a decision to make. And this is an interesting thing to talk about too. Like, what is an actual decision? Like with your authority being your basically your sensitivity to the needs of the tribe over time, which is timeless, actually. Like your authority is basically it's about kind of like timeless decisions, right? The tribe is timeless. And my inner authority by theory is only just this in the moment thing. But I guess I'm trusting that I'm gonna go where I'm going to go, and I can't actually change that. And I grew up conditioned to decide where I was going to go and then work my way to going there and being better than other people along the way. That was the model for my growing up, right? Decide where I'm gonna go. And the MG parents were very supportive of that. Oh, look, she knows she wants to be a lawyer. Let's support her in that. And so while I say that I was spontaneous a lot in before human design. The truth is that I got into a lot of structures that took away opportunities for spontaneity. Being a lawyer, all the university, all the schooling, and then the actual lawyering, and then all that stuff meant that there wasn't a lot of time to. So I wasn't a lot of the time actually being splenic. I was being committed. I was, to a certain path and performance. But I don't have any illusion that I can change the major path of my life at all anymore. Maybe the most I can do is like moment to moment, let something be more peaceful by not forcing me to do something that doesn't feel peaceful at the moment. And that is something that I trust more than ever before. I can just not do things, or I can put things off that don't feel good right now, and it will happen if it needs to happen. And I haven't gotten in any trouble for putting things off. I haven't, there's no like guilt factor about anything anymore. Like things actually do happen. And quadrite people, they live without having a plan about how it's going to happen. And if they have a plan, then they're really stressed out and uncomfortable to be around. So I'm just trusting I guess I'm trusting the no choice flow. Who can call it the no choice flow? Like the Tao flow, like the Tao being. I heard this explanation the other day. It's the easiest one to me. The Tao being any interaction between yin and yang, and everything's an interaction between yin and yang. So the interaction between yin and yang is going somewhere, and I don't get to decide that at all. And so I can just keep myself comfortable and then not, and sometimes seek discomfort because, okay.
What comes to my mind is I have this, idea of what it is to be a lawyer, of what it is to have a life where you've taken the bar, where you're, and in my mind, that life is incredibly intense, stressful, filled with, I'm just seeing a lot of time spent on work, a lot of time spent on getting that degree, even, right? Just going to law school. And now it feels like what you're talking about is like this 180 where your life seems very slow. Am I correct in assuming these things? Yeah.
That's totally accurate. My life is slow. There's not a lot that happens now. And that's true. And I wouldn't have believed I could have done this. I think if I had been asked, do you want a life like this? Like when I was 15, I would have said yes. But my understanding was at the time I didn't have any value unless I proved it. And I was gonna, I needed to use my mind for something. I did know that, and it needed to be something that was like good for the world. I had a very greenwashed kind of like I got it, and very 6'2" kind of perspective, right? Like I need to do something good for the world, so I'm going to do that. It wasn't because I wanted money. I was like, I'm going to be one of those lawyers that drives an old Subaru, and I didn't need to make money to do it. I needed to do something good that took up like my mind, and but yet you don't get to just go into that easy kind of Subaru living life. You do have to go through all of that conditioning, all of that, take away all your power, take away all your ability to like really break you down in order to perform within the structures of the legal system and especially the insurance system and all these factors that limit lawyers from being honest or the incentive structures, this and that, blah blah blah. And yeah, what an awful game it was. Like I get to talk to people about what is true from my understanding now. I get to say, dear mother, I'm reading your daughter's chart and this is what I'm seeing. And, on the side or around that, I can say, I don't even care if you believe me or not. I'm just reading this map for you. And I can tell you I had this experience with something similar in my life. And that was when I was 20 years old. And in contrast, the lawyer setup was a lot of posturing. Like speaking the truth quickly was not valued. But yeah, all the structure of getting into that, it just like that was my youth. That was my 20s. That was when I should have been a dance floor queen in Europe in my 20s, and I was working in a law library in Colorado, and learning all kinds of things about how awful the American government can be and how the legal system is blah. And anyway, so yeah, I think I'm recovering. I think I'm recovering.
It
Yeah.
sounds like it. And I wonder, do you have moments where you catch your mind missing that part of life?
Okay, there was a little visual or an auditory cut there. Do I catch my mind? What?
Do you catch your mind sometimes missing that lifestyle?
Yes, yes, having enough money to buy clothes and makeup and healthcare and transportation. Yeah, I do miss having that money. The power of being like a dink in America when you're 28 years old and like all the horsepower we owned and like the speed we got and yeah, but I do miss that. And I also have this sense of like, holy shit, I got away with that. I got to do all of that and then I got out of it. And if I had stayed on that, it wouldn't be enjoyable now, all the compromises. And the first compromise to me was like, I don't want to buy into the American private healthcare system. You can't make me spend my money on that insurance plan. If we all had to pay in, that would be one thing. If we had socialized medicine, another thing. But you can't make me spend my money on this private thing. And that was just the beginning of it. But that was one of the reasons I left. I was like, I don't think this is going to go the direction I want it to go. And then, the healthcare issues of the United States have become questionable since then, or more obviously. So yes, I do miss the material plane power of being a double income, no kids, with a generator in a sexy, beautiful place and a sexy, beautiful life, and all the power, power, power. I do, yeah, but it's never going to happen again. So,
Yeah,
and I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't gone to law school. If I hadn't gotten into the American system that said, "Oh, loan her money, give her mortgages," she's gonna be in the system for a long time. She went to law school, and so I kind of feel like maybe don't follow me, but at the same time, if I hadn't gone to law school, I wouldn't have known what I could get away with legally. So having the knowledge, like, and kind of like Ross says, when Ross said, there are no rules. There are no fucking rules. Like, really, they are all made up and at different levels of control. And so, I mean, is that going to catch up on me? Like, maybe. Are they going to throw me in jail? No, I can't. I can't go to jail for. Yeah, I haven't committed any crimes. I
Mhm.
haven't committed any crimes. So there's no. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. I see how excited I get. I'm like, yeah, it was so fun to have cars and stuff.
No, but I hear
It
you.
was.
And I have the same thing though, and I've really been contemplating about
Yeah.
it, because my previous life, which I like to call it, which is very
Yeah.
episode 6 too. Um, I would run nightclubs, cocktail bars. At one point I was the general manager of,
Hmm.
over 40 people and a 3.5 story building of all kinds of different activities of restaurant, cocktail bar, nightclub, all things
Ooh.
going on at the same time. And
Hmm.
living that life of just being able to go to the chef and getting some amazingly great food served to me on the table,
Oh yeah. Oh
going
yeah.
into the basement and getting a bottle of champagne, or be like, do I want Dom Perignon today? Just like having that access, and not only that, but just like the buzz of power,
Yeah.
having that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's so enticing. And there's a part of me that's just like, why did we give that up? Why did we stop doing that? And then I remember how peaceful I am. And then I remember how long ago it's been since I yelled at my husband. And then, you know, so yeah, fun to have been there, done that. But
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point about the conflict in the relationship. Yeah, there was a lot of conflict in my marriage, and I didn't understand why because we were so in love and everything was so beautiful. I understand now a great part of it was like just me playing out my mom, that kind of stuff, but also me not respecting him for what he is, and now, that could be different. Um, but yeah, as far as the giving it up, I every once in a while I do fantasize that maybe I haven't given it up forever.
Mhm.
Like maybe I'm just in the space. I am on the roof and while it hasn't seemed like a very protected experience since age 30, because all the most dramatic stuff has happened since I've been on the roof, I still have like 2 more years. And I do feel in the exact place I'm at right now that, oh, I'm safe. I could just be kind of aloof and a little bit. And I do have a sense that maybe I will come down into something else. Like I can, like, as I'm remembering, oh, another part of it is my body. My body's got so messed up in recent years, and I'm getting some body work now that is really changing some things. I'm like, ooh, this is what it felt like when I could do those things with my body. And maybe I've kind of like mentally given up, like I gotta age, I gotta slow down. I'm never gonna have the ass I used to have or the thighs I used to have. But now I'm like, oh, maybe it was just literally structural damage from this accident, and that I could get that energy again. And I'm always gonna have this ambitious moon, and I might make some other crazy move. I mean, one move, and your material plane changes completely. Like I never intended to work at this really big law firm in Oregon, but there was this one move, and then it was like, yep, I'm sliding in through that door sideways. And then I was in the second biggest law firm in the state, and there was lots of opportunity and lots of material, this and that. And now it's all like it's like a show. It's like a game now. But I know that I can't just try to play the game. I can't just say I want to play the game and earn money because I don't have that energy, right? But I do know that being myself, meeting just one person or going to just the right party or just the right one little thing could happen, and I might not be like scrubbing floor scrubbing floors anymore. Although I'm not scrubbing floors, but in the sense of, yeah, the humility of my present life, it's not like some virtue signal to be poor anymore.
Mm.
And but yet I also understand I can't decide with my mind to become more wealthy. It's going to be a natural, because no, I will not endure a frustrated sacral to make money. I will not endure, there's so many things I won't do anything incorrect for it. So it's either going to happen because it is or it's not. And so, yeah. Nostalgia, though. I do get the nostalgia. I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine you and I would have like we would have partied that one time and gone, that one girl I met in Norway, we would have touched each other that way. We would have.
Okay.
Yeah, so who knows? I think I'll be off the roof first, so I'll let you know. You'll be
I'm gonna
watching.
say your Chiron is coming up in a couple of years. I just had to go check. How does that
Uh-huh.
feel? I mean, do you notice already there's like this coming off of the roof experience, or is it just like it's just the same?
I've never identified with being on the roof.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that isn't my defined head just being in the way. Um, but I haven't, and except for being in this place right now, I've been here since November in this particular house, and my setup now does feel like that. Um, in the sense of I feel aloof in my vista and my view, and I keep my distance and this and that. But I feel protected in the sense of having tribe, and yeah, I have been paying attention to my Chiron at a certain level. There's certain things about it that I really don't like. Years ago, I was like so excited to see emotional manifesting generator, like, try the whole tribal defense circuit, like, oh, that looks good. Tribal defense. Please, fucking somebody let me defend me. Like, I can't do this myself. Um, but yeah, and in a 6-2 profile, so that's maybe like I think about that, like, okay, that could be cool. But and my others, yeah, yeah, I don't have a story around that. I do have quite a sense that things are really going to change in that first few years, though. And I wouldn't be surprised if I'm out of Costa Rica. So part of me says, I said, just chill. Your body will do whatever it wants to do. And, when you meet that person or that thing happens and when you're 51 and blah, 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 then, you might just be out of here forever. Or, or I double down in this place because I've always mentioned I was going to get married when I'm 50. like 50
Oh,
something.
okay.
Like I never ever thought I'd be married young, and I always thought it would happen when I was in my 50s. So I do imagine that there's a partnership there, and I just don't know anything else about that, but I do imagine that that's part of it. So, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I'm 10 years away from my Chiron, so I've still got it a while ago.
Well, that's really quite lovely. That way I mean, from my perspective, you can be very very comfortable with how your authority works. And I certainly had fears about that. Like even like 5 years ago, I was really afraid I was going to die in my early 50s. And now I'm not afraid of it. Um, but it won't surprise me.
Well, we'll see what happens. Time will
We will.
tell.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think Chiron is such an interesting mind fuck to think about.
Oh yeah, how so? So yeah, I'm happy to hear.
Well, this is also where that part of human design kind of gets into my head, and my head uses it against me.
Uh-huh.
And one of those
Nice
things,
to hear you admit that. Nice to hear you admit that because yeah, I'm finally there too.
it's like, yeah, I see it clear as fucking day. It's like, yeah, okay, you got that information and now you're using that. Thank you very much. Okay. And one of those parts is being that sixth line and not having done quote unquote the work of integrating, of understanding, of being on the roof again in quotes. And then coming to Chiron and then just being a fucking fool and nobody sees you as a role model. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of that is, I might not put this into the episode. We'll see. They both are 4-6 profiles. And I just see how their network doesn't see them as a role model at
Hmm.
all. They have no influence anymore. And they're just kind of these look at me, look at me, look at me kind of people. And I know that sounds
Interesting.
terrible.
Uh-huh. Interesting. And you're saying that they're off the roof. Yeah, were you around watching that happen? Or you're seeing this phase in their life where they didn't get to come into themselves as much as maybe theoretically possible? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they had strategy and authority for 10 years before they came off the roof, do you think that it would be different?
Yes, I do. I do.
Hmm.
And
Because
that's,
is their network a correct network?
well, that is another question.
Yeah.
It's not, right?
Right. So if you're locked into the wrong network, this is the discernment process, right? Like we're losing people right and left from our lives in this deconditioning process, but it's so much more awesome to have two real, correct relatings than to have, a tribe of 10 people or a group of 10 people that don't actually interact with you correctly. That's my perception of it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I really agree. I mean, I think that's also a part of the whole, going from the first phase to the second phase of just like cutting out so much shit from my life, but also
Mhm.
just that deconditioning process of like, I'm in my fifth year of human design now, so I'm still just a really baby in this whole system. But
Mhm.
it's so interesting to see how I'm not amused or entertained or mm, willing to give any energy to people who feel incorrect,
Mhm. Mhm.
feel like that frustrated sacral, or that I just had this experience with a person who has a defined ego, and it was just this incredibly immature defined ego, right? Because that's another thing. Even though we have a defined center, doesn't mean it's defined in a healthy way, and just having that interaction of this tribally defined ego, both with the 2644, but also the 3740, but just noticing there was no support there. It was only grasping for support. It was only this incredibly feeling. I was just like, what am I doing here? There's nothing mutual here.
Mm-hmm.
And that discernment, as you said, that word discernment, I love that. And I always,
Yeah, me too.
discernment soared within, it's just like that monopole, right? Just like, okay, yes or no, where are we going? And it's hard sometimes to look at my life now and be like, oh shit, okay, I've cut out so much, so many people, but then seeing the room that creates for new things to come in,
Yeah.
those things feel really good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, breaking bonds is really awesome. Even when it happens like unexpectedly sometimes, I really am very, very aware of that and the healthiness of that now. And maybe I'm on the dramatic side of it. I don't have that many third lines. Two of them are in my throat. So discernment, that's the word, discernment.
Yeah, I have a lot of third lines. I have as many third lines as I do have six lines, and I think it's six of each. So
Ooh, wow. Okay.
I'm always going to
Okay.
be trialing and erroring and always going to be fucking up to find out. And then we'll have that other side of progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, I feel like we're coming to a kind of a natural end here. I feel like I've gotten to go into all the different topics that I'd like to talk to you about, even if, yeah. Um, but is there anything that you would like to add? Is there something you feel is missing from this conversation or something that we didn't speak enough to today?
I don't think so. Where I'm different than I was a couple years ago that I'll just mention is just there's no desperation in my moves anymore. But there were some years of feeling quite desperate and really like this can't be okay. And now I'm like, oh, well, I was okay and I am okay. And like I said, when I put it in the context of I don't even get to decide when I die, but so why suffer along the way? There's just no mental cause of suffering anymore. And don't like human design shouldn't be a cause of mental suffering. Thinking about what other people are doing in human design shouldn't be part of one's own experiment, so to speak. It is a very selfish process. So when you hear other people that are being selfish in a way that you resonate to, that's the frequency to go listen to. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. And you I'm gonna steal this one from another another Clarion, in fact. I'm just remembering Amy Lee right now. Do you know Amy Lee, the projector? And
Yes.
yeah, so she's a Clarion, yeah, with thinking and freak genius, right? And I hope I'm crediting her correctly. I think she's the one who just said like, give up, just give up, give up. That's how you're gonna live your design. Give up. So yeah, even if you give up, you can't change your the course that the life is gonna flow you down. So well, go with the flow, man.
Exactly.
All these dumb cliches coming out of my mouth. That's my frickin' Chiron, that frickin' sixth line of 61. So stupid. I don't retarded. Do you know the line I'm talking about? Like I'm getting into these dumb details.
I just know 61 is the, mystical insights and the sixth line, I can just put it together, but I haven't actually.
Right. The detriment of the sixth line of gate 61. That's my Chiron there. I mean, I get both of them. I'm locked into both of them. There we go. There's a comment about the Chiron. I'm like, heck, I mean, six lines sounds good, but six lines are weird and strange and like the detriments are yuck. And
Yeah.
and I'm locked into those two. So I'm honestly hoping that my Chiron can just remain a theory over there and that I'm going to actually get to be my natal chart. That's actually really what I want. Can I just, I've been working on this natal chart, but I'm like comfortable with what's in this natal chart now. And I, I don't want to be an emotional manifesting generator selling shop worn slogans, which is that six line of gate 61. But then it just freaking came out of my mouth.
There we go.
Oh, no, what? Girl, it's in transit right now.
Is it?
Yes, the 6162 is in transit in the sixth line right now. So there we go.
There you
Okay.
go.
I might have chosen this date.
You did.
Oh no.
Maybe it was on purpose.
Well, yeah. You know, when the manifestor gets to choose, you always choose. And don't let other people choose for you, right? You know, like yeah. Yeah, that's important. But anyway, I don't know. Yeah, obviously I don't know how to end things very well
Well, I
until
will
I do.
try my best. Um, it's just been such an amazing conversation, and I'm so glad that you wanted to be a part of it because you've been such a part of my growth and understanding human design and just what you share specifically on Facebook because you're not that active on Instagram. But where can people find you and how can people work with you?
Yeah. Well, you can find me by emailing me or finding my website. It's pretty easy to remember my name, Isa Silver. So the website's isasilver.me and the email is isasilver@pm.me. Um, and you could find me on Facebook. I have Facebook there for human design purposes. And there's all kinds of ways we can get to working with each other, which is like not the best word, but yet it is a kind of a work for me. I love to translate body graphs. I love to tell people what I see in the map. And I love to listen to people who are open to my in the moment honesty about what I'm hearing. And I've also been called out to do some coaching. I never even wanted to do that, but that's whatever. It's a thing. And I am enjoying the opportunity to think about somebody all week long. Like I'm just because I'm thinking all the time, right? But then there's this hour where we actually talk, and then things come out, and I don't plan it, and it's awesome. And so I'm available for short-term engagements, and apparently I'm open to longer-term engagements now also. So um, it's hard to cookie cutter people into particular things. I try to sell a product, and then it turns into something else. But I get to suggest the flexibility of things. So to that extent, I want to say to people that if you hear something in the frequency, you know, go for it. And I'm happy to be creative about what happens.
Mm, beautiful. And I will, of course, put all this easily accessible in the show notes. And just on a personal note, I've had the pleasure of working with you in a group capacity where you were leading
Hmm.
us through a beautiful understanding or deeper understanding of being a manifestor is how that's what I'm left with. And so
Hmm.
anybody listening, anybody feeling drawn toward working with ISA, then yeah.
Well, and thanks for reminding me of that because I would like more manifestors to initiate groups that I can teach to, like the group that you were in. And I just know that I'm not the one to initiate the group. But that manifestor room, that's just like what you're doing with the podcast. You get supported and empowered just by the frequency of the manifestors you're interacting with. And I did not see any of that opportunity in my first years of human design. I looked around, I did not see manifestors that I wanted to go to a class with or wanted to get in a group with. And so yeah, I'd like to encourage manifestors who know that they want to do some kind of education with other manifestors and or people in their family or people, you know, mixed type groups. But that has worked out nicely for me that somebody else forms the group or makes the community, so to speak. And then I come in and serve that group. And that is, ooh, I really, really like that, especially the intertype communication, actually. But the manifestor to manifestors, there's only one way to get that.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I'd be happy to be called out for that.
Thank you so much for coming on this podcast again, Isa. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
You are very welcome, and it's been a pleasure to feel your tribal support and to see the evidence of that. I know a couple people now, maybe several actually, that have your tribal channel unconscious, and they don't know how supportive they are.
No.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I think you don't, and I can see how you are like more helpless about supporting the tribe than me. I can just kind of I can be aware of it for me, and I whatever, but I can see that you're pretty helpless with it, and that's a beautiful thing to see a manifestor helpless in supporting the tribe. Okay, because there aren't a lot of those role models around. Yeah.
I take
So
that to heart so much. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.